Dear friends, let us discuss a brief idea about the vertebrate fossils. Vertebrates are all the animals with backbones, including the fishes, amphibians, reptiles, birds and mammals. These animals have attracted a great deal of study. The efforts of generations of vertebrate paleontologists have been repaid by the discovery of countless spectacular fossils. The heavily armored fishes of the Silurian Devonian, 7- and 8-toed amphibians, sail-backed mammals like reptiles, early birds and dinosaurs with feathers, giant rhinoceros, rodents with horns, horse-eating, flightless birds and saber-toothed cats. These fossils tell us where the living vertebrates have come from, and they show us glimpses of different worlds that seem so bizarre that they would defy the imagination of a science fiction writer. Despite all of this information that has accumulated over past 200 years, the origin of the group is hotly debated. One thing is clear from the examination of living animals. The vertebrates are members of a larger group termed as the phylum Chordata, and their closest living relatives are marine animals such as the sea squids and amphioxus. These creatures do not have backbone, one of the characters of most vertebrates, but they share other features such as notochord, a flexible tough rod that runs along the length of the body down the back. The notochord in living chordates is generally made from an outer sheath of collagen, a tough fibrous connective tissue that encloses turgid fluid-filled spaces. Chordates have V-shaped muscle blocks, what you call as the myomeres, along the length of the body. The question about the origin of vertebrates then broadens out to focus on the origin of chordates. Molecular studies through the 1990s showed that previous conceptions of the tree were wrong, and that the fundamental splits in the tree of life were all among bacteria, separating the group two major groups, bacteria and archaea. The familiar plants, animals and fungi are parts of the eukaryotes, the major group characterized by complex cells with a nucleus. Relative latecomers in the broad scheme of things, modern studies confirm that major clade within metazoa, the animal is bilateria, supported by both morphological and molecular evidence. The bilateria includes the bilaterally symmetrical organisms comprising three clades, including Lophotrochozoa, including brachiopods, phoronids, annelids, mollusks and many minor groups, and Ecdysozoa, including arthropods, nematodes, priapulids and some minor groups, and Deuterostomia, which includes echinoderms, hemichordates and chordates. The origin of vertebrates has long been a profound mystery, but now some clarity is emerging. The purpose of studying vertebrate paleontology is to explore the various lines of evidence that can be used to reconstruct the story of the origin of vertebrates. The study of modern animals that are vertebrate-like in some features, the study of molecular relationships and fossils. Coming to the age of the dinosaurs. The most famous fossil vertebrates, the dinosaurs, what you call as literally the terrible lizards, arose in the late Triassic about 230 million years ago and dominated terrestrial faunas for the next 165 million years until their extinction at the end of the Cretaceous, that is 65 million years ago. The earliest dinosaurs were moderate-sized bipedal carnivores, but large quadrupedal herbivores had come on the scene by the end of the Triassic. During the Jurassic and Cretaceous, the dinosaurs diversified into great panoply of the carnivores, large and small, massive herbivores, small, fast-moving, specialized plant eaters, and forms armored with great bone plates, horns, carapaces, and clubs. The pterosaurs, relatives of the dinosaurs, filled the skies, and the birds, descendants of the carnivorous dinosaurs, also arose. Other land animals included the more familiar turtles, crocodilians, lizards, snakes, and mammals. The seas were populated by ichthyosaurs and the plesiosaurs, and in the late Cretaceous by mosasaurs, great marine reptiles that preyed on fishes, on squids, and on each other. The oldest known dinosaurs are dated as Carnian, that is late Triassic or 230 to 220 million years ago, and they include forms such as Eoraptor and Heristosaurus from the Argentina and Coelophysis from North America. On the late, most abundant late Triassic dinosaurs was Plateosaurus. The first specimens were found in southwestern Germany in 1837, and since then dozens of skeletons have been collected from over 50 localities in Germany, Switzerland, and France. Most dated as mid-Norian, what you call as 215 million years ago. The best locality was Trossingen, south of Stuttgart, where 35 skeletons and fragments of 70 more were excavated from the Lowenstein Formation. Dinosaurs have traditionally been divided into two groups, the Saurischia and the Ornithischia, on the basis of their radically different pelvic regions. Indeed, the hind limbs play a large part in characterizing dinosaur or Dinosauria and clades within Dinosauria. The Saurischian dinosaurs, carnivores, theropods, and herbivores, sauropodomorphs such as the Palytosaurus and its descendants. Saurischian and Ornithischian dinosaurs have long been identified by the so-called lizard hip and bird hip respectively. The more primitive structures is seen in the Saurischians, and in which the pubis points forwards and the ischium back, as in all basal archosaurs of the Triassic. In Ornithischians, on the other hand, the pubis runs back in parallel with ischium, and there is an additional prepubic process in front. Many dinosaurian characters of the hind limbs are related to the acquisition of the upright posture. The acetabulum is fully opened, and the pubis and ischium are long, slender elements. The legs are brought in close to the vertical midline of the body by a shift of the articulatory surface from the top of the femur to a distinct ball on its inside. The reorientation of the limbs from a partial sideways sprawl has also changed the angle of the knees and the ankle joints to simple hinges. The fibula is reduced often to a thin splint, and the tibia has a 90-degree twist so that the proximal head is broadest from back to the front and its distal end from side to side. The ankle and foot of dinosaurs are also distinctive. The ankle is dominated by a wide astragalus with a distinctive vertical process that wraps round the front of the tibia, and the calcaneum is a small block-like elements. In the foot, the dinosaur stands up on its toes, the digitigrade stance, rather than on the flat of its whole foot, the plantigrade stance. As most basal archosaurs and humans do, the outer toes 1 and 5 are much reduced, and the dinosaurs really uses only the middle 3 toes, that is 2, 3 and 4. Birds are a large group of highly successful flying vertebrates with just over 9,000 living species. The oldest bird, that is Archaeopteryx, as you all know, from the late Jurassic, is known in detail on the basis of several well-preserved specimens, but there are some gaps in the latter history of the bird evolution. The bird fossil record is better than has often been assumed of 153 families of living birds, and 134 have described fossil representatives, and there are a further 77 extinct families. Birds apparently remained rare during most of the Cretaceous, more than half their history, and the group went through several phases of expansion in the Cenozoic. Recent discoveries have turned up some remarkable extinct bird groups. Early Cretaceous specimens from China and Spain that fill a major gap between Archaeopteryx and the latter birds. Late Cretaceous flightless birds, birds that ate horses, and many more. Key problems remain in understanding bird phylogeny. Ironically, we seem to understand more about the relationship among Cretaceous birds than among the living orders. Archaeopteryx has been justly famous since its discovery in 1860. At that time, 1 year after publication of the Charles Darwin's On the Origin of Species, the new fossil seemed to be a perfect missing link between the reptiles and the birds, and enthusiasts for the evolution such as Thomas Henry Huxley used it as evidence for the new theory. Here was an animal with long bony tail, a hand with 3 separate clawed fingers with claws and toothy jaws, all primitive reptilian characters, but also asymmetric feathers and fracula, the fused clavicles or wishbone, and wings, all advanced bird characters. Archaeopteryx has continued to attract attention since then, as it is seen as a focal animal in evolution. Creationists attempt to argue that it is either a true bird with no hint of intermediate characters and hence not part of an evolutionary transition series, or that it is a forgery. In both views, they are mistaken. Coming to the mammals. Modern mammals are quite distinctive. They have hair. They generally have large brains. They feed their young on milk from mammary glands, hence the name mammals, and they care for their young over extended periods of time. In the late Triassic, when mammals arose, the boundary line between mammals and non-mammals was much less clear. Indeed, a succession of Triassic carnivores, synapsids, the cynodonts successively acquired mammalian characters over a time span of 30 to 40 million years, and the exact point at which these synapsids became mammals can be established only by an arbitrary decision. There is a debate about the true extent of the clade mammalia. Traditional views place the base of the clade at a node from which the Morganoconodon and the other Morganoconodontids branched off the mammal line. This node is marked by a key mammalian character, the possession of a single dominant jaw joint between the dentary and the squamosal. Supporters of the crown group concept such as define mammals as all of the descendants of the latest common ancestors of the monotremes and therians, the living forms, and they call the traditional mammalia the mammalia forms. Proponents of both approaches argue that they have right on their side. The traditional view is said to be stable and based on a specific set of characters transition. The crown group view offers a clear clade definition based on the extant mammals only. The early fossil record of primates indicates that the group radiated in the Paleocene and Eocene. Older records from the Cretaceous are doubtful, although molecular evidence suggests that the order might have originated in the latest Cretaceous. Could our distant ancestor, a small squirrel-like animal, have seen the last dinosaur as it peered nervously from behind some branches? The Plesiadapiforms are regarded as close relative of the primates, and they are sometimes formally included in the order Primates. Undisputed basal primates include the Omomides, adapiforms and tarsids. The living hominida fall in two subfamilies, the Ponginae, the orangutan and its fossil relatives, and the Homininae, chimps, gorillas, humans and their fossil relatives. This split marks a divergence in mode of the locomotion from a generalized tree-climbing ancestor. The orangs specialized in suspension, that is branchiation and slow climbing, whereas the African great apes specialized in terrestrial quadrupedalism, that is chimps and gorilla, and bipedalism, that is humans. The first hominids may be the Kenya-Pitticinae, known mainly from eastern Africa, but also from Turkey, Central Europe and perhaps Namibia from 20 to 14 million years ago. Kenya-Pithecus, named on the basis of teeth and jaws from Kenya, was a 1 meter tall animal that climbed trees and lived on the ground. There is growing evidence about the history of the Ponginae. A new species represented by a lower jaw from the upper Miocene of the Thailand, Corapithecus, shares characters with the modern orangutan and suggests a long independent history of the Pongins in the Southeast Asia. The ramomorphs have also been regarded as orang relatives. The majority of the ramomorphs are younger in age, that is 13 to 7 million years ago, than Kenya-Pithecus, and they are referred to as the Sivapithecus, which is equal to Ramapithecus also. Sivapithecus is known from Turkey, northern India, Pakistan and China. It was rather like the modern orangutan with heavily jaws and broad cheeks, teeth covered with thick enamel, all of which suggest a diet of tough vegetation. There is a specialized pattern of cusps on the molar teeth. There are 5 cusps separated by a deep groove in a Y shape, the so-called Y5 molar. There is disagreement over the modes of locomotion of Sivapithecus. Perhaps it was a journalist that moved on all 4, both in trees and on the ground, and perhaps some species were adapted for climbing and suspension and others for quadrupedal locomotion. Until about 1980s, Sivapithecus was generally regarded as being on the line to the humans, a view confirmed by superficial comparison of palates. Apes have a rectangular dental arcade, humans have rounded tooth row, and the palate of the Sivapithecus seems to form a perfect intermediate. The wider anatomical evidence, however, confirms that the Sivapithecus is related to the orangutans. Ramomorphs probably included Gryphopithecus from the middle Miocene, that is 15 million years ago, of Turkey, Leuphengopithecus from the middle Miocene, that is 14 to 10 million years ago, of China and Thailand, and Ankarapithecus from the upper Miocene from 11 million years ago, of Turkey, Gigantopithecus from the late Miocene of India, and the Pleistocene of China was a possible late surviving ramomorph. One of the most astonishing primates, Gigantopithecus, must have been monstrous and had massive, heavily worn teeth. It was 10 times the size of Sivapithecus, and the adult males might have reached heights of 2.5 meters and weights of 270 kg. This huge animal stalked the forest of Southeast Asia from 5 to 0.3 million years ago, and some regard it as the source of the stories of Yetis in Central Asia and the Bigfoot of North America. Sometimes in the middle Miocene, apes radiated into the Europe. A Dryopithecus was first reported in 1856 from southern France, the first fossil ape to be found. Since then, further Dryopithecus specimens have been found in the upper Miocene, that is 10 to 7 million years ago, of Europe, from Spain to Hungary. Dryopithecus was adapted for suspension beneath branches, and it probably swung rapidly around the subtropical forests of southern Europe. The arms and in particular the hands are long, and the thumb and finger bones indicate that there were strong grasping muscles. Dryopithecus lies somewhere in the cladogram between proconsul and the modern apes, but its precise affinities of the hotly debated. Other European genera such as Oreopithecus, and that is 8 million years ago, and Greicopithecus, that is 9 to 8 million years ago, may fall close to the Dryopithecus or Dryopithecians, or latter might show affinities with gorillas. Gorillas and chimps have no definite fossil record, but this is far from the case for the third extant group of the African apes, the humans. Now let us conclude the entire discussion. Actually, the vertebrates are all the animals which contains a backbone. A backbone comes from the notochord, which is a long, slender, cylinder-like object found in vertebrates only. Actually, the life began in the water and then came to the land. Vertebrates are found both in the water as well as in the land. Also, there are some animals which are peculiar, which live on land as well as in the water, what you call as the amphibians. The reptiles and the mammals and other fishes, they are all included in the vertebrates. Actually, they have radiated a lot after coming to the land, and a variety of forms we know from the fossils, and still today there are some evidences that relate that they have came from some other bigger evidences. Like the reptiles, in general morphology it is much like that of the dinosaurs, and also we have the characters common, so we can relate that the present is key to the past. I hope you might have enjoyed the text. Thank you very much.